Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Roach Crossing weekly general weekly live stream. I'm just gonna mess it up until I can read it out loud. Weekly general live stream. Yep, June 30th, 2022. It's good to be back. Boy, it feels like it's been forever, even though it's only been 2 weeks. To be honest, a lot of the last 2 weeks is kind of a blur. Staycation was very nice, and I spent the time with some very lovely people. And getting back to things has been not necessarily rough, but there's just a lot to do, and a lot of things that a lot of things need to be done in the next month. So again, it's good to be back. Geez, it's been 2 weeks and it feels like forever. So wait, the last live stream was on the 9th, so it's been 1 whole week, 2 whole weeks, and 3 weeks. Technically, right? Did I do a live stream on the 16th? No, I didn't. Whew, that's yeah, it's been a hot minute. So thinking of things that are up. Actually, this does remind me, because I haven't been streaming, I actually unplugged the Ethernet cable because it runs from here into the kitchen. I'm gonna see, I gotta plug it in so that I get better internet and things go through better. Although I'm not getting any indication that the quality of the feed's bad right now. My router has done some weird things in the past where sometimes plugging it in will actually give me worse internet quality than when it's unplugged. I don't know how that works. It's 2 separate weird channel things. I am not that technologically involved. So if anybody who's in the chat, if I'm coming through all right, then I won't even bother, because there's the possible risk of cutting out the stream if I go to plug it in, because it'll hop from one of these or the Wi-Fi networks to the other. So anyways, yeah, it's been 3 weeks. I have a lot of bugs have come in, surprisingly. A lot of things have come in the last couple of weeks, from Alan and Kai going on the trip that I was stranded from going on, basically, to just some random odds and ends here and there. And I'm getting a little bit of background anxiety thinking about some of the things I need to get back to doing today and tomorrow. But fortunately, with the shipping having been done this week and with just getting back to orders, I had the obligation type work has not begun to pile up on top of me just yet. So I do have a little bit of flexibility to focus on setting up cultures and whatnot. And still good on husbandry too, I think. Yeah, because I did a lot of that before the staycation. So I think of just general updates on some things. Well, I should touch on what I'm going to be working on primarily during this live stream and sort of stream of consciousness of that. And that is, unless anybody has any questions. Hello, good to see you, Alan, and Bunkalo Minus. I am going to actually, I can't believe I'm good. Hey, I got to start doing this, but it's got only like 5-6 weeks. I'm going to start planning my out west trip now, actually. So I'm going to pull up the old calendar and maps and sort of talk about that as I'm doing it. Oh boy. So yeah, it's there's no brakes on the hype train this year, that's for sure. Oh, I don't want to view as a PDF. Okay. So yeah, they got the west trip. I would call it the Arizona trip, but it's going to be a little more complex than that this time, I think, because I have 2 places in Arizona. I guess technically 3. in Arizona, although the one is like really close to Utah, so it's not that. It's still in Arizona, but it's basically Utah. So yeah, Alan, it is unfortunate we won't be able to coordinate a meetup since you guys are going to be there before I am with your California trip. But hopefully, since we have 2 groups going, technically 3, because I think Ty is going out there with his wife. We'll have a lot of eyes looking over a lot of different places for cool stuff. So hopefully, you guys find some Air Vega in California, and I find some cool stuff in Arizona and Utah, and I'm heavily debating going to West Texas, especially because I want those Hezbollahs that you won't give me, Alan. So going to West Texas might be worth my while, and there's some other. If we do, they are going to TJ. You're going to send Aaron Vega to TJ and not to me. I am offended as I sit here contently with my collection of multiple Aaron Vega species. TJ actually had an Aaron Vega from California sent to me. Unfortunately, it was shipped very poorly with no food on dry paper towels in like a weirdly ventilated container. And even though it sort of turned around, I think I talked about this on a live stream, even though it sort of perked up, I don't think it produced an ooth before it died. So there's a curse on California Aaron Vega. But all the stuff from the trip last year has produced babies, and I have established colonies of pretty much everything except for the Boland's Old West trading posts, which were in the wild individuals were in poor shape when I was there. Like I was pulling them out of the burrows, and I couldn't find anything bigger than like a 3rd or 4th instar, and they were like on the verge of death as I was finding them. So that's not very positive. So I didn't have too much hope for those, and they eventually did end up doing that well. Hello, some eggs. Good to see you again. What was I going to say? And the Sahuarita Aaron Vega also had a gray mite issue, and I think I should have put them into a bigger enclosure from the get-go. And actually, I was able to send. I was actually able to receive some more Sahuaritas from Ben, so I may not actually have to go and collect them again because I have a group of about 12, and I'm going to throw them in a big enclosure, and that should do it hopefully, and I'll just grab some more if I end up going to that area this year. So I'm not too concerned about not culturing those. Was there a disappointment one, a strain that didn't do very well? There was that other California Aaron Vega one where I have 2 adult females that are virgins, and so that was disappointing. But pretty much everything from the actual trip has reproduced, including the Fort Hancock. I'm looking over here because I can't. Yeah, Fort Hancock was the one where Will and I stopped at like a Sunoco or something in Fort Hancock, and I went off while Will was talking on the phone to his fiance. I went off and just sort of flipped trash and looked at stuff, and I found 1 adult female, and I was like, "Ooh, goody!" And so that's doing well. There's actually maybe 3rd or 4th instars in there now, so that's good. So yeah, pretty much everything I collected is doing well. Like Apache, I'm going to have enough to send TJ soon. And was it erratic 10x? 10x was the one we believe came from. Was it Animas, which is near. Animas, which is near Rodeo, and the 10x are doing. This is the first time I've got. Is that F2? Maybe it's an F2. Yeah, logic it out. But there's offspring. There's a lot of babies in there now, so that's the first time we've gotten really good results out of that. Jack of all spades. I have only spoken to you through email as of yet, and you had mentioned you had a gold dubia breed. Are there photos of those available? I had a sticky note on my desktop for the longest time to get a picture of that dubia line, the improved gold that doesn't have a final name yet, and somebody had suggested, I think it was some egg suggested cornflakes, And I really like that idea over the other suggestion that people have come up with, because eventually it may be marketed at a much larger scale than it currently is. And the name that was suggested is definitely not marketable at that scale. So I want to get a picture of them in a bowl and see how appropriate it was. But the line is not consistent, or the coloration is consistently gold. I greatly dislike you, Alan. The coloration is consistently gold, but it's more of like it's more subdued. It's more like the color of cornflakes, at least on the nymphs. In the adults, there's a mixture of color from the phenotype for the original gold line, and there's more variation in it. And I've decided not to select that out of the adults because the original gold line, I think, was selected very heavily for this color in the adults versus Jack. I'm assuming you're the fellow from. Are you the person from Roach Forum who's been working on the gold dubia that I've been communicating with? Anyway, so there's another person who's finished a gold dubia project, and what he was doing was, it seemed that he was selecting the adults for their coloration. So he's ended up with some bright yellow adult females and yellowish golden adult males. This other line of dubia, the nymphs have those colors. The adult males are sort of golden, but the females are more of like how do you describe that? It's like a how would you describe that color? It's not yellow. There's nothing yellow about these the strain's adult females. They're sort of like a very deep red purple, kind of like the color of like a Eublaberus posticus or Seranus nymph. So there's nothing yellow or gold about the adult females from this particular line. So they're two very different, very distinct lines and should not be confused. But anyways, where I was going with this is, it seems that selecting for those colors in the original gold line of dubia, which is from Europe, that you decrease the fitness for some reason. It seems that something is missing that is important for stabilizing the exoskeleton consistently, and so you get sort of infertility and poor growth and a lot of other things in that original gold line, which was not good. For me, even keeping them like regular dubia and then treating them better than that, the line just never really took off in the same way that regular dubia colonies do. And it seems a lot of other people in the US have lost those. The original gold from Europe. And so I crossed those with standard dubias in an attempt to try and see if, oh, maybe there's another reason for this poor vigor in them. And whatever it is, there is some association between that original gold trait, or whatever that the trait that was given to the original gold line, and not being very vigorous or being kind of fragile. And so I was hoping to get that phenotype with the vigor of regular dubia, and the two don't seem to be compatible. So I've developed a line that is as close as I feel you can comfortably get to that original gold's look, but it has vigor that's closer to the regular dubias, but not quite as much. So so yeah, that's that line. But this other person was selecting for This other line that this person on a Roach form has been selecting for is oh, then it is you. Okay, yeah. Then Jack of all spades is the person who developed this better golden yellow dubia line, and they don't have any of these issues because again, it's a different trait that's been selected for. Even just looking at the differences in the adults on Jack's line are like the females are like bright neon screaming yellow. They're really cool versus the females from the original gold line. The gold is probably a reference to the nymphs, which have the golden color because there's something up with their exoskeleton. So there seems to be completely different suite of genetic components in these two different lines. I would like to cross them eventually to see what things can be toyed with and what can be improved on and what maybe there's some cool phenotype that can be achieved by combining the two of them. But more important is getting Jack here's line going in good numbers to be available and to be used for other projects maybe because he's done some absolutely wonderful work with them and they will be a real treasure and an instant favorite when his line is more readily available. I'm gonna just touch on some eggs. Had a question here. You have a blog post that mentioned captive breeding regal jumping spiders. Currently have a litter of bull jumping spiders. I'm curious how to take care of them. Yes, I'm working on captive breeding Regis, and I've had some good success. In fact, I may have gotten unintentional pairing in these captive ones because I've taken a bunch of slings, I put them into a large enclosure together, and then given them infinite food. They do cannibalize each other a little bit, but this is definitely the way to go to rearing up a good number of them with as little effort on my end as possible. So they just basically need a lot of ventilation and a lot of food, and you can't really keep them too dry. I try to mist them when the bug room was dry all winter. I try to mist them like once a day ish. Been very lazy because of staycation with watering things, but pretty much everything's fine because of air humidity. It does not even the driest, and it's been pretty dry right now. It's 39% humidity. And for anybody who's been listening into this long enough, I was using a very crappy hygrometer up until very recently. And so before, when I was referencing air humidity, you may have heard me saying something like, oh, in the bug room during the winter, it's 40, 50%. That was using the non-electric hygrometer. I'm now using electric hygrometers. And that 40, 50% before on the non-electric hygrometer, on all the electric ones, it's more like 20 to 30% humidity. It's a big difference. So the current humidity here is about 40%. It's been very, very, very dry here in Michigan. Very, very like insanely dry for it being June. We've gotten barely any rain, and when we do get rain, it's like a morning shower and it's done, and it sucks. It's very unusual for Michigan. So, but anyways, where I was going with this is it's about 40% relative humidity here right now. In the bug room during the winter, it is corrected using the electric hygrometers. It's 20 to 30% relative humidity. So it's very dry, so I can water daily and not have issues. Right now, I can be a little bit more lazy because the air humidity is higher, so things don't lose water into the air as readily as they do when it's so dry. And yes, Brett, we are talking about the golden dews. I'm just going to take a quick second to see if anybody else that I'm missing to say hi to. Hello, Stephen, Logan, Brett B, Chain. It's good to see a lot of you guys back again after the long staycation break, and the unintended one too, because I was going to do a live stream that one week. I had to cancel it because I didn't realize I had double booked myself for a native edible plants presentation that day. So I was just sort of like, So anyways, here we are. But yeah, so with Audax, I am pretty sure, and I haven't tried to do this in a while. Last time I tried to breed Audax or just raise a bunch of Audax was back in, high school. I still had a good bug head on my shoulders at that time, anywhere from freshman to senior year of high school that I was trying to work with Audax. But the problem that I encountered was they would get to what I presumed was subadult or close, and then they would stay there forever and just die after that. And anytime that I found Audax just out and about in like late winter or early summer, they're always subadults. So I think at least with the ones at certain what am I trying to say here? Latitudes, they may need to be cooled or exposed to a long, dark photo period to simulate a winter when they're subadults or once they've grown enough. And again, whenever I find Audax in the spring and whatnot, they're always subadults. They could overwinter as eggs. I don't know. But just from my experience, I think that would be the biggest hurdle of raising a group, is that at some point you will need to cool them all or shorten the photo period to get them to mature after that. Jack says, I would imagine that if you select maybe 2 generations of just light nymphs, that would set them for the dubias. Ones I'm saying you don't have the breeding issue, the difference between an albino and white rabbit. Yes, so there's a similar phenotype in the nymphs, but the genetics underlying that are very, very different, which is why I'm curious about crossing them and seeing what sort of traits and what phenotypes could be created from crossing and selecting. There are a lot of other cool dubias, and I've given it kind of a very half-hearted try in the past to create some other dubia lines, like maybe getting some all black ones. I do have technically a sort of giant line that I've been working with for a while, but I haven't really done any selecting on it. It just kind of propagates in this one enclosure, and I'm not very confident in what I'm producing there to claim that it's going anywhere. Stephen Logan says, will you ever do videos on how you set up your containers or substrate, general care stuff? Yes, I've been saying it for a while. The thing is, I would like the videos to have a good production quality to them, and setting up the time, taking the time out of the schedule with my current schedule and current status of employees and employment, it's just not feasible. I mean, I could skip a live stream to do that, but I don't know. I like doing the live stream, and I feel it gives people a lot of value to be able to come on here and ask questions and talk about things and network and whatnot. So it is in the works. It's probably it will have to wait unless by some act of God, it will probably wait until I have the final bug building built, and then I can have a specific area for it and get the production value and the presentation up to the point where I would like it. So that's what I was saying. There's a lot of big things in the works for the next year, and that would be one of them, is actually using the channel for more than just the live streams and the occasional videos of things. Alan says, fortunately, Southern Audax, don't need that. Friend of mine received a grab female from me and got 2 generations out of them without giving a die pause. So probably just feed them a lot, making sure there's tons of food available and that there's pretty good ventilation if your air humidity is high or if you water a lot. So, Brett, yes, I did the giant line. Also might be having some slight problems right now. I picked down to like the 2 best females, and I put them into a full size 10-gallon. With 2 males, and it's too much space for them, but I've been too stubborn, and it's been on the back burner for me to be like, okay, I'm going to move these into a smaller thing to get them breeding again. But now I'm going to have to do that on the list of things to do, along with, I'm regretting, I have to go through and clean my whole garage so I can make room for a big tub to fill with sand, painstakingly dragged out of the backyard, but with a drainage layer of rocks at the bottom. Sand dragged out of the backyard, thrown into the tub, all of it sterilized, by the way, to breed blue death fanning beetles and see if I can get their production up to a commercial level. Can we see some insects? Yes, some eggs. I will find something to show off at some point here. But I want to, again, primary thing I wanted to get done today on the, of course, other than people talking and asking more questions since it's been a hot minute. And I don't see Smack Smack in here, but I just responded to an email earlier today, and I think that she wanted to ask some questions. So if you're lurking, if let me know so I can respond to those. Think you should show off the clog meal. Uh, I mean, they're in a big culture downstairs now, so I mean, I could drag that up. I'm just trying to think. If there's, I mean, I've gotten a couple of other death feigning beetle species in. The main ones of interest are, of course, the blue death feigning beetles. But again, I might drive all the way to Allen Spot in West Texas to collect Asbolus mexicanus because it seems they breed year round instead of having some sort of arbitrary diapause or whatever like Vericosis do. But I am. It seems that there's been some tangible success breeding the blue death feigning beetles, and it seems very involved. And I don't think it's that involved in terms of regulate this, watch that, do this, etc. And saying this, having raised quite a few different genre of tenebrionids at this point. So that's why I want to try this the easy set up and forget about it way, because I can give them that space with putting it in the garage. But this is also making me think that like I'm gonna have to drag it inside during the winter because it is gonna get too cold out there for them. It will get below freezing, but I'm mainly doing it for the heat during the summer, and then I'll leave things to fall Kyle to figure out, because my spare room downstairs, which is the second supply room downstairs, gets the perfect temperature for overwintering a lot of temperate insects, but not like Michigan temperate. So I wouldn't keep like native Saturniid cocoons in there over the winter, but like just south of here, like stuff from Alabama or things from other temperate parts of the world that need just some sort of cooling, but not crazy. So yeah, I'm thinking about like, oh man, what heavy duty container am I going to have to get that has handles on it that I can pick up and move without it breaking when it's full of sand or full of sand and compost from outside. I have a couple of ideas because I wanna give and I have to put a drainage. I want to put a drainage layer of rocks on the bottom so that I can water it from the bottom. Maybe. Now I'm second guessing myself on all of this. Not all of it. I'm just trying to think about if I want to be at the mercy of top down watering with these, because I do that with all my other darklings right now, but they're not in big, deep, huge setups. They're in like critter keepers, glass tanks, where and when I take care of them, I have to tilt the whole thing and let the water percolate down one side. Maybe I'll just do that with the death feigners. Maybe I don't know. I'm gonna have to logic it out more and see what's gonna be less of a pain. So, but anyway, so I'm going to again. I'm gonna look at my calendar here and see what days. And this is also it's also very unfortunate, and I really hate this, but it's ending up but it looks like it has to be this way. But I believe Friday the 12th is Will's wedding, and I am distraught that that is like that date is pretty much unavoidable for what I want to find and what I want to do going out west this year. Because I mean, we went out in September last year, and we got a lot of stuff. But I would like to get more beetles. There was also there's just also there's stuff that will make the trip more worthwhile in August than in September this year, because a lot of the stuff that I collected last year is doing well, or I have a lot of things established from there that I want. I feel confident with what I got in September that I don't want to do another September trip, which unfortunately forces me to look at August. And so this is going to be smack dab in the perfect time for a bunch of stuff. And I talked to Will about it, and he says he's fine with it as long as I find there's a certain special something he wants from Cave Creek Canyon. And that will be my wedding gift to him, is finding this special something that he wants in Cave Creek Canyon. So I have to get that for him. But I am, again, it sucks because I wanted to go to the wedding, but he also understands, because one of the reasons why I'm going there is there's an undescribed springtail that I found last year and confirmed that it's undescribed. And I was going to send specimens to get it described, and the colony collapsed because air humidity either got too dry. It was sort of a second thought cultivating this springtail with the way that I set it up, and it did really well initially. And then again, because springtails are not easy, or most springtails are not easy, the colony crashed, and then I had to explain to this person, to the springtail expert, about how this easy described species that's already got an undescribed species like label to it, how I was ready to send them a bunch and I had a colony, and then I had to turn around and be like, yep, they're all gone. They all collapsed. I don't have any. And I think that they were silently upset at me over that. So, which is why now I want to go out and I have to collect a bunch of specimens, including a big, huge size holotype. I have to collect enough to bring back to culture because I don't want to fail again. And I really want this special springtail to stick around and be propagated. And I want to do a more formal assessment of the ecology, just notes on it's found here, here's the surrounding vegetation, etc. I've also found it here, just to sort of give some additional information on this undescribed springtail. So it's been a goal of mine to find an undescribed species, and there are plenty of roach candidates, but there is more miring with that, because a lot of people are just unsure about different roach taxa. It's more work to have to untangle the roach taxa thing at the moment than it is to have a specimen of something that's already known by experts to be undescribed and then describe it. It basically, the thing is irrefutable, basically. So that's one of the main things. Why not go the first week of August? Is because I already have some things, important things scheduled for the first week of August, and so that's been out. So I'm probably going to leave around the 8th, and then probably try to get back around the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. This is the stuff I have to work backwards and say how long it's going to take me to get to my first location, and then how long am I going to need there, followed by how long is it going to take to get from there to Yuma, how long am I going to need in Yuma, how long is it going to take to get from Yuma to Cave Creek Canyon, how long am I going to spend there, how long am I going to take from Cave Creek Canyon to just screwing around in West Texas, where am I even going to go? And then, of course, probably going to have to go and drop my significant other off back in Utah on the way back from all this. So it's a bunch of driving, a big circle, and that's basically what I have to micromanage and figure out here. I'm going to go here and I some of the comments. I'm thinking my failures with the Aptigoda subclass have to do with needing some kind of overwintering chain. Let me see what. Oh yeah, silverfish, another nightmare for captive breeding, unless they're thermobia. Yeah, fun. Alan has collected lots of silverfish. We have some luck with Lepisma. I've had some luck with Satenna's Lepisma. I actually, now that I think about it, I have a container of some native silverfish that we found in Tuskegee National Forest. The last time I checked on them, they were in really good shape. So the problem is going to be whether or not they're going to actually reproduce. I did collect another presumably native silverfish in Cave Creek Canyon. They bred very sparingly in with those springtails, but very sparingly is not establishing a captive culture that you can split and send to other people and blah blah blah. So um, yeah, silverfish are difficult. They're very difficult. Even the pest species are difficult for whatever reasons. There's another reason, another thing to collect in Arizona is in Yuma. There's a native, and I saw it before when we were there, and I thought, oh, it's just domestic. It's just Thermobia domestica. There is a native species of firebrat in Arizona, and I remember finding tons of them in Yuma. And again, I was just so like, oh, it's just domestica. It's not. It says native Thermobia, and so now I have to collect those so I can culture them and have more than one species of Thermobia. What do you have planned in order to get the varicoses laying and pupating? Sand with maybe 1/2 or deeper layers moist, and that seems to be it. I have gotten larvae from a non-producing group of varicoses before. I bought them in the fall. This was back when I lived with my parents, and I kept them in my bedroom at the time, which was in the attic of the house. And so they stayed in my bedroom. It was like one of the only things that I had in my actual bedroom at that point upstairs. They stayed in my bedroom over winter, so it got down into like the 50s, 60s, or maybe I put them in the room that's outside the bedroom because I would usually sleep in the cold, and I didn't spend any time up there anyways. So I one of those two rooms. It got in the 50s, 60s during the winter. Summer came, it got hot and humid up there, and all of a sudden, tons of larvae, and they were eating just dog food in there with the adults. So yeah, I'm basically just going to cycle the adults and just sort of a lot of there are other darklings where the adults live multiple years, and you cool them in the fall to get them to start reproducing again in the springtime. Also, it says my connection is unstable. Is it coming through all right? Anybody who's able to respond? So that's my plan with the Asbolus severicosis is to do that. In pupation, I suspect that they will do it in situ if they have enough space, as with pretty much all other darklings that I've raised, just depending on how much space they feel they have. So, what do you think is the biomass of invertebrates in your house? Hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like about 200 pounds worth of, of bug matter in the house. Uh, Maybe I would be surprised. Yeah, 200 pounds seems about right of just bugs. I mean, if it's my collection, you count all the birds and the poultry and the guinea pigs and the dog and stuff, you greatly increase that number. But invertebrate biomass, I wouldn't be surprised if it was about 200 pounds. CS says, I'd really appreciate a care video. So a video for a variety of roach species. I've got a male and 2 female hissers. They seem fine, but they're not reproducing. Yes, I brought this up earlier. I would like to get some good production value for my future videos of setting things up. I have been wanting to do an isopod one regardless before that because people are killing things left and right and overcomplicating everything, and it annoys me greatly. So that would probably be a start to finish building an isopod enclosure out of one of these critter keepers. So if I do something like that before the new facility, then I will likely hire Will to do the filmography, whatever it's called. But Will's a very busy guy planning the wedding and working his big boy full-time job. So there will probably have to be some fair monetary compensation for that work, and at a time where it's not going to cut into my work, and at a time where Will's actually available. So so yeah, the answer to that is as soon as I can, I will. Um, Hello, Alex. Good to see you. Any other new folks pop in? Lagged for a bit, but good now. All right. Um, Brett B. I've got some healthy bristletails, but I only ever been able to get them breed once and only got a few offspring from a collection of about 40, 50. I'm going to keep the container when they die off and try keeping it cool for diapause to see if that'll work. They're fickle little queens. Cries and Cubaris. Greenbug says you're looking to get some of those succinctus that showed back up in the States. If I was able to find a group for a fair price, I think in a couple of weeks I would purchase some Percellio succinctus. At the moment, I'm so backlogged on things that I need to put away that I can't. But in a couple of weeks, once I've gotten back on top of things, also in a couple of weeks, I'm supposed to go out with Will and Brandon and Kai to collect that rare termite species on the west side of the state, which I had a wonderful colony of that I started from a handful of individuals, and the colony lasted for 2.5 years. And then last summer, I neglected it and it got too dry and they all died out. So time to go and collect more. It was Reticulotermes, Aaronuncola. Will and I spent countless hours trying to key these out with we were looking at the mandibles, we were looking at all the publications, we were looking at the genetic work and all this other range maps. And it's basically these Aaronuncola are sort of a new species that is rapidly diverging from its parent species. Flavipes, I think, is the parent. And so it's a dune adapted termite. And so there's still the genetic work suggests that there's still some gene flow between the populations, but apparently not enough to discourage the two from being listed as different species because there's different habitat preferences and probably different nuptial flight stuff. So, and again, this is morphologically determining different reticulotermes is very involving the mandibles of the soldiers and all this other stuff. And so this is a big thing back, and I want to say 2020. That was it 2020 or no? It would have been early 2021 where Will and I took some time. We were just like slamming our heads at the computer and at the microscope, looking at the specimens that we were pulling apart and trying to figure out what they were. But based on range, based on habitat, and based on some morphology features, we're pretty sure that they're an Aaronuncola. And so I got to go get them again. And the sticky note's been sitting on my work board for months now, and I collected them in July originally in 2018, and so now we gotta go back and get some more. They're just under some rotting cottonwood on the dunes. I'm gonna have to find a little moist pocket with cottonwood wood sitting on it, and then I just grabbed whatever nymphs I could at the time. I honestly didn't think I'd get them established, but they ended up becoming a huge colony, and I tried to split them, and it didn't go so well. I should have split them into smaller enclosures. I think that was the problem. So, but anyways, now older, wiser, to hopefully get those guys going again. So yeah. So enjoy the talk about culturing bristletails and whatnot. Alex, they don't need rotting cottonwood. I was feeding them just like wood pellets and random rotting wood. It's just on the dunes, pretty much the only wood is cottonwood, and so there's probably some degree of adaptation to exploit that. But yeah, it's pretty much just cottonwood on the dunes. So that I just saw that, and I think I picked it apart looking for isopods, and was happily greeted by the small group of reticulotermes. So, anyways, yeah. now is the part where I'm going to dig a little further into my dates for the Arizona trip, for the West trip. I mean, it's grown to be more than just an Arizona trip, and so I'm going to pull up some documents. And if anybody has any questions, I'm just going to sort of ramble as I look at this and plan things out. But of course, feel free to post them in over here in the chat. Oh, before I get too involved with that, while we have quite a few people here, and I just put a blog post up about this. This fall, the first weekend in October, I'm looking into doing a big cyber sale weekend because, last year we did, really quick, the brain saw the post here. Alex, last year we did a quick visit to Colorado, and I wouldn't mind hitting up southern Colorado to see if there's actually any air Vega there. I don't think it's in the cards for this trip because of I have the handful of things that I'm really obsessed with getting in for this trip, and so I've got to pick and choose everything else carefully around that because again, it's probably be a big loop route to before I come back home. So, but in the future, I'll keep that in mind as a Colorado contact. Anyways, what I was going on about first weekend in October. So I used to do the Tinley Park Expo, and it was big and it was awesome and it was a lot of fun. Nowadays, it's ridiculously difficult trying to get a table for Tinley Park because of how much the show has grown and just the way that things are done. Where basically the tables are booked years ahead of time. So you have to either get there the day of and hope that they have something for you, which is not my speed, or plan meticulously ahead of time and then lock yourself into going back every spring and fall. So it was also a lot of work, and like several weeks before would be consumed by me having to get ready for Tinley Park. And while it was worth the time, I do have more bugs now than ever before, and more other things going on in my life than before too. And so it may not be viable for me to put a lot of effort into trying to get there, and even getting there may not be worth it, or it would be worth it, but it's a lot. It's just a lot. So, ooh, somebody hissed. So I like the idea of doing something at that time of year. I really like sort of the feel of fall and fall events, and with selling the house and moving coming up, having some extra funds on hand would be quite handy. So I'm planning a big cyber sale weekend for the first weekend in October. Also lets me slip in before Tinley Park, so if people see something there or see something at my sale for a really good price, they'll be more inclined to pick it up there than go to Tinley Park and get it for 20 times the regular retail value. So anyways, just some dates to put on your calendars. I'm sort of generating some ideas for what I'd like to do. I'm thinking an all day, maybe even all night if I can, just a very long live stream during that time with where I'm just actively selling, maybe doing some raffling, some auctioning, some charity donation type stuff for October, for the first weekend in October. I think it could be a lot of fun. It's definitely a lot less work than definitely a lot less work than actually going to Tinley Park. And so I think it could be really fun. And so I have to get sort of a general idea together for what I'd like to do for that. But just getting that into the public knowledge sphere, there'd be sale prices and all this stuff. And I was like, maybe, it's a good time of year for really good time of year for shipping. Maybe I do something like free shipping on all orders, or free shipping on all orders that are done through the live stream, or something like that. Something to make it a really good time for both me as well as for people who are looking to get things. Maybe dividing it up into, okay, here's the Roach sales raffle, whatever time. Here's the isopod. Here's the millipede, etc. Donate to repro rights charities. actually, let me touch on the charity thing. So I'm this is not the first time that this concept has come up, but so I'm thinking for some of the roaches and stuff that I maintain, that there's some degree of moral obligation to uh, to look out for their well-being, and for preserving their wild habitat and whatnot, because sure as hell isn't the like United Save the Roaches Foundation, although maybe there would be. Now I'm thinking about it, it would be an interesting nonprofit name to apply for the Save the Roaches Foundation or something like that. So yeah, something like Simon Doa Conservarium doesn't. There's no formal sort of roach charity organization for what is almost certainly the one of the most neglected taxa of organisms on the planet in terms of conservation. Um, People were, it was maybe back around 2012, where people were all like nobody cares about the blobfish. We got to save the blobfish, and it became like a huge sensation. And then it's like, yeah, now everybody knows about the blobfish. Yeah, it's like so much for nobody cares or knows about it. But like people know about roaches, they just don't care. Full stop. Xerces Society could be one. But so things like Simon Doa Conservarium is one of the reasons why I prefer to give them away with people who show some serious interest in keeping roaches, which is why you get a free colony if you order a certain number of other roach species from me of Simon Doa. I much prefer that it goes to people who are looking to put in effort into maintaining them. So now we have some lovely pure locality strains of hissing cockroaches, and Madagascar is kind of a dumpster fire from what I've heard from a friend who did conservation work there back in 2015, 2014. I doubt the situation has improved much, but she was basically telling about how, they would go to some site to study lemurs, and the next day, wherever they were studying, the trees were cut down and stuff like that. That's horrible. That's like worst case scenario there. So, with some of these other species eventually available, like these pure hisser strains, I'm thinking and probably going to build a donation into the cost of the roaches, and so that money will go directly to. And I was talking with TJ about this, because he has a direct line to Dr. Beccaloni, who is association with Madagascar and whatnot. But he's pointing me in the way of some charities that are doing work preserving known hisser habitat. They're obviously doing it for either from an environmental level or for lemurs specifically, but they're still preserving habitat there for things. And I think that would be a good way to sort of circle around to sort of bring it all together by donating to a cause that I feel very, very strongly about with respect to preserving cockroaches and whatnot. And maybe even one day, another thing is, in the United States, I can't really think of any roaches that I am going to talk about one, but I can't think of any roaches that we kind of know for an absolute fact are at very high risk of extinction. Some of those, it's like Parcablata, Pennsylvanica and Lata and whatnot are pretty wide ranging and whatnot. We don't really know how well off some species like Notha and Caudali are on a larger scale, or Deserti. We just don't know. Like, the most we know is probably from like Alan and whoever else has been with us on Arizona and Alabama trips, like trying to find them and just being like, yeah, these are kind of hard to find, or like unreliable to find. So, but the one roach that I am pretty sure of needing conservation assistance is Aranavega floridensis, or whatever if they eventually split them up into being multiple species. Aeronavega floridensis is you know that it's kind of screwed, or in the long term, when some of the most reliable places to find it are an empty lot on a university campus that is almost certainly going to be developed within the next 50 years. What was can't show that. An empty lot that was going to be destroyed for subdivision housing, and for some reason has not been developed yet. That is also home to I think it's a federally listed endangered species of animal, but it's still going to be developed anyways. And another location where things have been recorded from, and within the time period of the species being recorded there, and the last time anybody bothered to check for it, it's become overgrown and infested with Picnoscelis. You know that species is not doing well on a larger scale, especially when it's already got such a restricted range. So I mean, pretty much everything on the sandridge habitat's kind of at high risk because of just how unique and odd that the situation there is. So Aeronavega floridensis is definitely up there. I mean, and the risk there, it's like it's not like invasive species per se in like some of the spots like that development subdivision. It's just straight up habitat destruction. If they destroy those areas and just put houses there, they're going to put lawns, they're going to have like just weird horticultural plants. And unless there's like some small pockets of those sand scrub areas that are left between houses, which are just going to get encroached on by various things, they're just not going to be able to hang on. It's just a simple matter of fact. There's not sandy space for them. They could probably hang on in a lot of weird places if they have the proper space, but they're just going to terraform everything if they develop those places. So I'm looking forward to hopefully making those things available and sort of donating to the cause, which is another thing why I wanted to do like some donation stuff and whatnot during the October thing. Is we haven't confirmed it yet. I keep asking them, but the Environmental Interpretive Center at U of M Dearborn is open to the public again. I have my large invertebrate zoo there, but when COVID happened, they slammed the whole building into lockdown, and not even the staff that work there could get in and out. The only people that were allowed to even access the building were the building maintenance. Just one person went in, so basically everything died, and we have to restart it again. And since that time, there's been a lot of changes of hands and other things going on at the Interpretive Center. And so they're not even sure if or when they want to get the bug zoo up and running again. I made it abundantly clear that I'm ready to go in, and Brandon and Will would help me, and we go in and get everything up to snuff and then have it going at a good pace again in perpetuity. But it's a matter of whether or not the current director decides that that's an option they want to go with. So, but if they give the okay, we are going to need some funds to just get things going again. And so that would be one of the things, is getting the bug zoo up and running at U of M again, and sort of putting on some whistles and bells to things. So the Wild Martin, great of you to join us. Good to see you here in the middle of the stream and not at the dead end when I have to just wave and say goodbye. And I appreciate your support for cockroach conservation. They, again, at least in the United States, the species that I can say pretty much for certain needs it is Aeronavega floridensis. But elsewhere, the stuff in Madagascar almost certainly needs it too. Do you or anyone you know currently have captive floridensis? Alan has some, I think. Yes, Alan has some groups. I think TJ has some, maybe. I have 3 localities. I have Lake Placid, Ocala, and Tampa, and those represent the three major family tree splits for Aeronavega floridensis based on the molecular work that was done. So those are 3 of the branches that are likely up for that would likely be split with fair certainty into 3 different species if they decide to go that route. They are morphologically unique from each other. in terms of size and markings and some of the male characteristics. So there's a molecular and a morphological and a geographical basis that they could be split into several species on. Out of those, the Tampa and this it's been a lot of trial and error trying to figure out the ideal husbandry for them. I feel I've got it down pat finally. And so out of these three, the Tampa are doing very well. They're readily reproducing and thriving and growing in the setups. The setups are actually right there. They're in the office because they're very important to me, and so I take extra special good care of them. So Tampa are doing exceptional, and the place where we found Tampa is at very high risk for being developed because it's on a university campus and just like a big lot that's already had all the palmettos and stuff removed. It's basically like a big field there. I don't know what they could use it for, but there's some scattered patches of like the palmettos and whatnot that remain, and so you can still find some really cool stuff if you go there. But it's just it's going to be developed. The second they have a use for that space, they're just gonna develop it. So I'm glad that those got going. Any time for a quick story. These were all collected. The initial Lake Placids I didn't do well with. These are Lake Placids that were collected over the winter by Alan and Kai. The Tampa I collected on the Florida trip in March, and the Ocala are from Alan. I don't know how long he'd had them originally for. So the Ocala are all captive bred for a couple generations. Anyways, a quick story with the Tampa, and I'm going to sound like a broken record. I feel like I probably brought this up on a live stream before, but Alan took me to the location, and we're all out there, and it's kind of cold actually for Florida, and we're digging through the sand, and I'm grabbing as many as I can from just this one island area that had them, and so. And it's all mowed too. It's all like grass in between the little islands and stuff with sandy patches and whatnot. And we're digging through there, and I'm trying to grab as many as possible. And Alan says, I think Alan, you said something like, oh, it's getting kind of cold. I think I want to get going. I'm kind of cold. And I had maybe like a windbreaker jacket on or just a t-shirt. And I turned to Alan because I felt like I didn't have enough to 100% guarantee I can get them established while figuring out husbandry and all this other stuff. But I turned to Alan and I was like, Alan, I will literally strip down to my underwear and give you all of my clothes if I have to keep you warm, to keep looking for these right now. So in the end, I think we maybe caught upwards of like 50 or 60 of them. And so they've been doing really well and that was we found the most there. I brought the most back. I'm so glad that I did that because there was some wiggle room while trying to figure out the ideal husbandry, and I lost a good number of them in the original enclosures that I had them in, and then finally got them into this, and they're doing amazing. So that's the Tampa. The Ocala came from Alan, and again, I kind of screwed up with those originally too. And when I put them into this setup from the original container, I think I had one adult female and maybe 3 to 5 like second to fourth instar nymphs, and I was like, okay, this is a real crapshoot here. And putting them into this more involved setup, they just started the nymphs started growing like crazy. The female was doing fine. And so now I'm hoping that one of the nymphs that mature into an adult male will fertilize the female. We'll get another round of ooths going from this older female. And so I'm not as certain on these Ocalas. It's all dependent on whether or not that one female starts producing some ooths. Because if we got maybe 5 ooths out of her, I'd be very confident, with this new male in there, because I don't know if she was holding on to sperm or if she was in condition to do that from before. But if I got 5 ooths to hatch, I would feel pretty confident that these guys would get established. But again, it's kind of up in the air. It depends on who's going to mature when. And finally, the Lake Placids, which a little bit of a funny story behind all of these. Again, since I've never been to the Ocala spot, I don't have as much to say about them collection story-wise. Well, the Lake Placid spot, I could not. When I was there in March, Alan was finding them. I think that Jehu was finding them, and I just couldn't. I couldn't find any sand roaches at the Lake Placid spot to save my life, and I was getting so frustrated because there is an endorphin hit you get when you are digging or looking for Arita Vega, and you flip like a big like nymph or like an adult female. There's just this little brain spark you get when you do that. And I was just here, they're flipping. Alan's like, "Oh, some adult female. Oh, adult female." I'm like, "I just want to find one adult female. I need my fix, man." So so yeah, I don't think I ever even found an adult female there or whatever. But anyway, so that group in the old setup again did not do well and completely pittered out. And so Kai and Alan went and got me some more Lake Placids, and at the time that they went, I was unsure that I had lost all my previous Lake Placids. So it's just like, oh, I just need like a couple, just to sort of top off the colony. And then found out that no, they were, or I think it was Archibald. No, both my Lake Placids and my Archibalds did not do well in the old setups. But anyways, so they went and got them, and I think Kai handed me the container in like December and was like, "Oh, I think we found you like 4 of them." And so I like looked at it just very casually, just like, "Okay, there's like 4 in here. Okay, that must be all of them. They're all females, and I'm probably screwed." Blah blah. And then a couple of weeks later, when I finally got around to putting them into a new designated container after I had lost the other Lake Placids, and I was like, oh, maybe I should, they all look like subadults, but, I should probably take better care of them or something. And then I opened up and found out, oh, no, there was like 10 or 12 that they found from Lake Placid in there. So it's like, okay, we'll put these in a good setup right away. And so they're doing phenomenal. Like, Lake Placid they just get so huge compared to the other 2 varieties. It's just a huge, very beautiful variety. The image that is the image for the Roach Crossing logo and for all the live streams, that is not a Lake Placid but an Archibald. The 2 populations are so close to each other, it's likely that they still have some gene flow or would have had some gene flow in relative recent geologic history. So I don't feel too bad about not having Archibald going, and instead just having Lake Placid until I one day go to Archibald. But they're doing phenomenal. It ended up perfect where it seemed like my females matured long before my males did, and now there's just tons of ooths in the sand and whatnot all over the place. So Lake Placid is doing really, really well. And again, the only iffy one is Ocala, but Alan just says I have Ocala breeding, so just eventually beg Alan for some more if mine don't get going, or beg for a partner for females that mature if there aren't males and whatnot, and that'll be that. So I feel very confident about the fate of these species in captivity, at least here, other than the Ocala. Lake Placid, like, the thing with Floridensis, and I know I was going to use this to plan out the trip, which it seems like maybe now I'm going to get too wrapped up in conversation, which is fine, to get exact dates and stuff down. I might have to do it later. But the thing about Floridensis is that they don't like it too wet or too dry. And so in these setups, which give them a lot of space, a lot of horizontal and vertical gradients of humidity in the substrate, is that I usually find them just like sort of suspended in the sandy organic matter mix. Sort of, they're not at the bottom in the dry area. They're definitely not touching any of the moist stuff. They're just completely away from the moist area. But they're in like a little like zone. If there's here's the slope, here's the top of the substrate, and over here's the moist, over here's the dry. They're just like right here. They're not touching the moist, but they're suspended in the sand, not right below the surface, but at a little depth right there, and not all the way down here where the bottom of the aquarium is, they're just sort of suspended right in here. And sometimes I'll find them in other places in the substrate, but the majority of them are in that sort of little special zone. And I feel like that's what was missing with my previous setups, is that they just could never find a place to be comfortable like that. And of course, they all have heat too. I'm debating, since Alan has some success breeding Floridensis, I don't know if that's a big factor in keeping them healthy or not, or if that's to be if that's contributing something. But it does keep the dry side drier than if there were no heat lamp over there. And I do water them frequently because they're up here in the office. Right now, they're getting watered about every other day. During the winter, I was watering daily. So, and they've got a bunch of oak leaf litter, and I dump a bunch of fish flakes in there. There's also a bunch of pyralis moths that breed in there because it's also created the perfect conditions for the pyralis moths. Maybe one day the Arena Vega will outcompete them. We'll see how things go. Roach, somebody added me. Some eggs, yes, the name Roach Crossing does come from Animal Crossing, and you probably also noticed that the font on the little logo now is eerily similar to the original Roach or original Animal Crossing logo too. So, yeah, Florida endemic stuff is really cool, especially on a lot of the stuff on the sand ridge. There's just so much cool stuff. Or they got Wolbachia. I think it's been too long, and also I'm thinking again, reassessing things, that during the winter time my air humidity was between 20 and 30% realistically. I went over at the beginning about how there's a discrepancy in my crappy non-electric hygrometer and my actual digital hygrometers now. So during the winter it was 20 to 30% humidity in the bug room. And if that's not affecting the hatch rate of the ooths themselves, it can be affecting the condition of the adult roaches, where females may just be in dehydrated or lacking, or go to oviposit, and opening up their abdomen causes, a loss of air so rapidly that it causes the ooths to deform. So this winter, I'm going to try using some glass covers on things that were problematic last year. Another thing was with the possible Wolbachia is that ectobiids didn't really seem to be affected by it, and I would have thought that they might be. The species Malaysia little penguins, I think also they just sort of went into a death spiral over the summer last year when I wasn't taking good care of things, and then just couldn't be pulled out of it, because now I have them in the same setup as before, and they're doing there's hundreds of them in there now after getting another restart of a dozen or 20 or whatever. So I really think it's things getting too dry, even though I would water daily. The water evaporates again. The enclosures. Thinking back to some other things that I had problems with, that I didn't used to have problems with, like the Eurycotis opaca. My parents' house would get 10 to 20% relative humidity during the winter time. And when I lived there during the winter time, a lot of my roaches were in very poorly ventilated enclosures. But when the air humidity is 10 to 20%, even if there's a couple of holes poked or something somewhere, that the water is going to diffuse, the gaseous water is going to diffuse right out of those enclosures very quickly, and not cause stagnant conditions, which is why I remember keeping things like Deropeltis in a plastic container within a plastic container and getting good results keeping them, and things like Eurycotis, not Improspera opaca, in plastic containers with just a couple of vent holes on the front and the back. Yeah, I think I'm going to get these glass covers and put them on things to still allow for watering easily at the front, but to lock in a lot more humidity. And I don't want to, I could go and put everything in different containers, but I really like using my glass tanks now. Like I really like using glass tanks. It's very fulfilling to water things and look in at night and see things easily and whatnot. So I would rather retrofit my 10 gallons to have solid glass covers or nearly solid glass covers than go through and put like 10 species of roaches in like a special container and get them off the current rack system and all that stuff. So so that's Floridensis and all this other stuff I've been talking about. I guess I can go back to eyeballing the calendar. So August 8th is a Monday. August 8th. Monday, August 8th. Leave Michigan. Oh, another fun fact about this trip is since my usual travel companion, who recently has been will be getting married and unable to attend, I will be making the drive to at least Utah, which is basically the same distance as Arizona, at least east-west. I will be making that drive solo. So I'm going to be driving and this is also another thing that's going to contribute to my trip planning is that I don't, if it's 12 hours by directions, then that means that actually getting there, unless I'm driving literally nonstop, and that's not how it works because I will have to stretch my legs. I will have to use the bathroom. Oh boy, that's 27 hours. This is 2 days and 5 hours. This goes to Colorado, but the Dakota. Oh, I have to go through Wyoming. Jeez. Oh man. This is going to be nuts. This is going to be nuts. August 8th. We're going to leave in the morning. This is going to be insane, guys. This is going to be actually insane. I'm going to be so relieved when oh man, this thing can't even, the tool come pick me up from FOCO. Here's another lovely, another thing to add to the equation. So at least for part of this trip, this will be a couples trip. I will bring that up right now. She has been a lurker for quite a while and pops up in the chat very rarely. But my girlfriend, whose name is Madison, lives in Utah and has expressed some interest in tagging along as I go on a suicide bug mission. And so, at least for a good portion of the trip is going to be just the two of us. So it's another reason why, it's the primary reason why I have to drive to Utah, though there is an Air Vega locality in Utah with a GPS point that I could hit up, but the one that I'm most interested in is in very northern Arizona. So, but it's going to be it's going to be one of those for a good portion of things. So, which is again why I have to. Oh wait, this is a 24-hour drive. Oh yes, that's better. Okay, I think that's the route I was originally going to take. Yeah, I have no idea why it wanted to route me all the way up through the Dakotas and whatnot, but oh boy. What was where's Will? There's a state that I want to avoid because it's awful. Oklahoma. That was it, I think. Yeah. Will, if anybody here lives in Oklahoma, I am so sorry for you. And I know it's probably easier because you have a fast pass or whatever, or something like that. But to a foreigner from Michigan, driving through Oklahoma was a nightmare. It's like tolls every couple miles, and like everywhere you get off and on, it's like another toll and all this other stuff. It was awful. Like, how do you put up with that living there to go any? And again, I know they probably got a fast pass or something like that where you pay like a flat rate or something, or they charge you on your taxes or something like that. But like, it sucked. So like, I have to route this trip so that on the way back in some capacity or whatever, that you just know Oklahoma, just know Oklahoma, because it's awful. I don't want to go through that state ever again because of this. And again, my apologies to anybody who actually lives there for offending you, but also my apologies that you have to live in a state with a freeway or whatever system, like turnpike or whatever they call it. So, anyways, so yeah, that's why I have to start things off in Utah. But also, it's convenient because, again, that the one Air Vegas spots in northern Utah, so it's very handy to come in from the north. Although it's going to be a bit of an interesting finagling to get to places. And I do really, I'm going to pull it up right now. That record of Air Vega from Utah proper, because that we don't know what their northernmost extent is or could be. Like, for example, Parkablata Americana, or just whatever this entity Parkablata is in California on the West Coast. We have captive stock breeding now from Idaho, from Table Rock, Idaho. Yeah, around Boise, which is very out of range for all traditional reports of Americana, or just for Parkablata. The other Parkablata, like Americanas from like coastal California, and then up there, it's such a different habitat and place and whatnot. Oh, also, this reminds me, speaking of different Parkablata entities, Alan, if you are hanging around still, I did a cross of Michigan Parkablata pennsylvanica to Alabama Parkablata pennsylvanica, and the eggs don't look like they're fertile. They look like the female was laying oots, and they look like they've died, or like they're not fertile. So that has some interesting implications if the two populations are geographically isolated, and there's some morphological differences, which there are in size and in color, and if they're reproductively isolated. That's a pretty good argument for two different species. So, yeah. But let me see if I can find. Is there a way to search by? Gosh, there are a lot of Air Vega species. I'm gonna see if I can find them. I was looking. I found the stuff from. I found a way to sort by specimen records in Utah. Here we go, by Moab, by Boise Bugman. Let's see if I can. National park. There's got to be some area outside of that. That would be kosher for collecting in. So, but anyways, I'm going to I gotta make a note here. Moab fiery furnace here in Vega, because this is that's pretty far north for Air Vega, I think. Be all the way up around Moab. So I just made a note there in case it works out to be feasible to get there. Good chance Divisa and Pennsylvanica are species complex. Yeah, and the fact that you can identify, like, a lot of the northeastern Pennsylvanica are pretty distinctive compared to, like, if you could show me Pennsylvania from pretty much like Wisconsin over to New York, and I would say, oh yeah, those are from like the Great Lakes area, Pennsylvania. They're very different from the ones from further south and even west, because we found in Nebraska, we found some Pennsylvania, and they seem smaller and darker than the Michigan ones. So there's a lot of work to be done on Parkablad, and we've all been saying this for years. I don't want to be the one who necessarily does that per se. Alan, I know that you're already kind of dying with your grad workload, but uh, maybe we gotta get a working group together for this stuff. Maybe there's some work to be done there that nobody else is doing apparently. So yeah, this tiny image of Aaron Vega from this place. Salt Valley Overlook. Gonna just make a note here. Anyways, this trip is three-part, I guess. Collect holotypes for that undescribed springtail, in addition to potential holotypes for something else in Cave Creek Canyon, which is why I need to spend some time there, is looking for holotypes of this other organism. I'll let other sad grad student work on that. There's another organism that I have been asked not to speak up on that has a very high chance of being undescribed, based on morphology, based on habitat distribution, and getting specimens would confirm from a genetic, doing the phylogeny, could confirm new species based on genetics. And so it's important for me to go and secure a holotype for this organism for somebody who is doing work on this group of organisms. I look very pale like that. I don't like that. And that's another thing in Cave Creek Canyon that I have to go and get. And another reason why I need to spend some time there to make sure that I get enough specimens for the work, but also specimens to bring home and potentially work on captive breeding, blah, blah, blah. So, so holotypes for this stuff is one of the reasons why I'm doing this trip in the first place. Rounding off the Aranavega collection. As much as I would love to keep doing suicide missions to Arizona, I know there's a time is coming very soon that, at least for a couple of years, I should not be doing that. Once I move, there's a lot of things that I have to do, just life goals and things like, for starters, getting the full bug building going and maintaining that and propagating all this stuff and making sure it's viable. That takes priority, and I can't be running off to do trips when I have a business and a collection to maintain. I can still do it now while things are still on a smaller scale, but when things are up even more, and it's not really a small scale right now, but it's still sustainable for me to go off and do trips while things are as they are currently. When I have a full bug building, it's going to be a lot more difficult. And I also have a lot of things I want to do with the landscaping, like preparing 20 acres of pasture with native plants to feed to goats and a bunch of other stuff. So there will be a time period of a couple of years where I may do no trips for a year, or I have to be very careful about what trips I do and when to acquire very specific things. So I wanted, there's a couple of Aranavega and things that I wanted, such as these Utah, Northern Arizona ones, which seem very different from other ones we currently have. The very huge Aranavega that live in Yuma. That's one of the main reasons I'm going to Yuma, is for those. And of course, driving from Yuma to Cave Creek Canyon will send me through some places I haven't been before, where I can then go out and look for Aranavega there and hopefully tick off some more boxes going from Western Arizona, which again I haven't really collected through ever, other than going to Yuma the one time, all the way to eastern Arizona again. That's more familiar. So that's another objective. And finally, the last objective is to just sort of round out some of the Arizona bugs that I would like to have again, um, that I've that I've liked in the past and that I have lost either due to neglect or not knowing their husbandry. So getting things like Chrysina, Gloriosa, and whatnot when I feel more confident with Rudely beetles now, getting Strategus alois again, hopefully coming across some Catalpa, and maybe this will be the year for Gymnotina or for rare Cotinus and Gymnetus species and whatnot. Who knows? So I have to take my chances. And um, Kim Wisman, who I brought up a number of times, lived in Arizona for, I used to say 30 years. I was corrected because Kim was like, oh, once you get past like this number of years, it's all the same. But he lived there for 31 years. Says that Arizona is getting bombarded with rain and that this could prove to be an extremely fruitful collecting trip, which also makes me think of how last year everything was overgrown, how I'd never seen it so lush with all the grasses everywhere and all the wildflowers and stuff. But this could be an excellent year because last year was great. So numbers of a lot of things that have taken a year, have had a year life cycle, could be through the roof now. So it could be an excellent year for a lot of things like desert beetles. And so, oh yeah, Bayer I can't remember if we found Bayer in Cave Creek Canyon or not. There's a lot of Gloriosa there. There were some places where we found a lot of Bayer, like Madeira Canyon. If it's on the way to Cave Creek Canyon, might go to Madeira Canyon to look at Bog Springs number 11 or whatever campsite to find Aranavega, which I didn't find last time because I think it was too wet. Maybe I couldn't find, or it was too overgrown. So I'm not sure if Bayer is in the picture, but Gloriosa is, and feasibly Wood Eye could be if I go through West Texas up in the mountains, which is on the table for things to do. Some eggs, I'm going to give you an insect on the camera, and I'm going to answer another question. Brett's asking how Megaphasma are doing. So I'm going to go get a Megaphasma right now. Good boy. Alrighty. Here we are. This is after very short development time of 3 months. 3 months. This is a Megaphasma dentricus from a strain that feeds, or at least can be fed, exclusively on red cedar. And so this is not the largest female that I have. And the person who got me this strain did inform me that they don't seem to get to their fullest size on red cedar. But I have no reference because I've never seen Megaphasma before. This is my first time seeing an adult. Well, when mine matured, but I have no reference because I've never seen what would be considered a giant megaphasma. So I have no metric of measurement for other than the hard numbers, but I don't know if they take those head to abdomen tip or head to pointed out legs tips or whatever. But that's a big stick bug. And the males, this female's got like a nice sort of like teal hue, and the males get some actual blue on them, more intense than this. So um so yeah, here you go. Here's Megaphasma detritus. I think I have about 20 individuals. There's some that are immature, and we're getting to the point where I should change their cedar out. I think it's been about a month since I put cedar in there, and they're doing all right. But I feel like I should give them a boost. I have started to find ova, so they're doing great. And again, this is these will rapidly gain popularity because they eat an evergreen native Eastern United States native plant, and there's for sure Western species of cedars too. Um, Hello, Smack Smack. Good to see you. I can touch on the questions you emailed me in a moment here after I'm done showing off this beauty. I will have some. I should have some ova available very, 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 very soon. In fact, that there's somebody that I technically offered some for sale to, but I have to go outside and count up how many ova have dropped in the cage that they're in. So, so yeah. And this strain will also take bramble too, but again, the selling point is that they are confirmed to only feed on red cedar and grow from hatchling to adult, and then make ova on just red cedar, which can be acquired at all times of the year. So it requires very little prep work because you can just go out and collect it in the wintertime and feed it. You don't have to freeze it or do anything else with it. Uh, pretty durable sticks, as you guys may have seen. She flopped off of my hands. Legs don't seem to pop off quite as readily as some other stick bugs I've worked with, although they are definitely not as durable as like a Peru phasma or an Anisomorpha. So yeah, let's see if tone down the lighting a little bit there, show it off a little bit more. Yeah, great stick bug. This is so before at U of N as our native stick bug, we were maintaining a Nisomorpha, which was going fine. It was still a bit of a pain during the wintertime, but it usually ended up the colony would cycle through where by like December, when we were unable to get like a good supply of high quality honeysuckle or whatnot, or by like January, really late winter when things have been herbivores have stripped the branches of any remaining evergreen leaves on things, and when things are kind of still dormant, is really the worst time of year. And so, but we would usually have the adults die off by then naturally, and then we would get a crop of babies pop up in early spring, and then sort of scramble to get stuff available and going for them, fresher stuff. So, but with these guys, we don't have to worry about that because you just grab red cedar year round. And by distance, these are closer to Michigan than the Anisomorpha are. Like there were some reports of these from like up in the Chicago area. So I wouldn't doubt that there might be some places in Michigan where you could find them. Probably a very small area of remnant prairie or something like that. But I wouldn't doubt that they could be found in Michigan. So, so yeah, this is Megaphasma right here. I'm going to see if I can somehow maneuver. No, you're going to want to climb off my hands. I'm going to pull up Smack Smack's email and answer some questions. And we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, so we may be, things may be ending right around then. And I'll have to rush doing my Arizona trip planning right afterwards. I don't like typing one-handed. Here we go. Oh. Okay. What? What's up? What's up? Do you want to come here? No? Okay. Poor baby. Okay. Let's see. Mites in with springtails. What do you want? You want to come here? No? He's just laying down barking for some reason. Able to see him over there. Not a sound this whole time, and then all of a sudden. Anyways, mites in with springtails. It depends on what species of springtail and what species of mite. So the predatory mites tend to be very mobile and very leggy, for lack of better description. And many springtails, or at least most commonly kept springtails, seem to be pretty resilient when those pop up. I don't think I've ever seen them knock out like a Sinella colony. They will take a couple of they'll take some smaller ones, but then eventually sort of just dissipate. But I have seen it somehow correlated to springtail colonies decreasing, and not necessarily, might not even be because they're eating them. Again, where this entity of mite that's very leggy and very mobile, because I've seen them pop up in healthy colonies of springtails and then just sort of disappear and not destroy all the springtails. So if you're using Sinella, then you're probably, or not Sinella, sorry. Is it Secobria now? TJ told me some springtail expert examined our tropical pinks and they're actually a different genus. It's Secobria tropical pink. So if you're using tropical pinks, you probably don't have anything to worry about. If the mites are slow moving, you probably don't have anything to worry about. But just sort of keep a general eye on conditions, and if things start to go south, try and correct the humidity or whatnot, or the substrate content, etc., or the feeding schedule back to whatever you were doing when things were going well. And the other question was, any more notes about Pseudoglomerus magnifica? I have nothing new in particular to add, except after the first batch of babies, I did have a couple of adult females die, or maybe subadults. It's kind of hard to tell with them. And I wasn't sure if it was due to they just stressed from giving birth, or if it was a husbandry thing due to lack of space or too much space or something like that. It wasn't enough to make me panic about the fate of the colony. It was enough to make me slow down on sales and to be more attentive to them and just keep a better eye on them. And I have not had another big baby boom like the initial one. That might be because there's fewer adult females in there, but there's just a good distribution of sizes now, that the colony seems fine overall, and I'm just sort of waiting for some more L3s to sort of be active and well noticeable before I send out some more groups of them. So Timema species would be a good, cool, and captive culture. I think I've looked into those before. Yeah, there's been a lot of work done on, I think, their speciation or something like that. Those are really cool. The problem is just finding somebody who will actually go out and collect them. At least California ones. Let's see. Oh, it's a strictly Western thing. Okay, so I could find those in Arizona possibly. But yeah, if somebody would collect them, I would give them a go because they're really cool. They're like not even. They're so weird looking. They're like stoneflies and stick bugs combined in aesthetic. So, but again, difficult to get anything from California because of the very hit or miss with some of the collectors and whatnot. Their consistency, seasonality, and blah blah blah. trying to corral her. Actually did find springtails in the colony, still not as many, but they're hanging out in the deeper soil layer. Are they tropical pinks or another species? Because that could be in temperate whites. Yeah, the nomenclature on available springtails is for at least for the last 10 plus years. Temperate white, large white, tiny white, small this, small that, tropical, temperate, Arctic, blah blah blah. It's nice that there's some species and genus labels on some things nowadays, but temperate whites are probably just Phosomia Canada, and Secobria have a tendency to get into everything, and thus you end up with mixed cultures of some things of just like two species. So, but yeah, if they're deeper in the substrate, that might just be their preferred habitat because Phosomia is a soil dwelling springtail, likes a lot more moisture than most other springtails do, and so you'll actually find them deeper buried into the substrate than you ever would Secobria or small silvers or any of these other species that some of us are desperately trying to continuously propagate while accounting for our husbandry errors and air humidity. So, anyways, unless there's any more specific questions, I think I might wrap things up to so I can focus on jotting down more Arizona trip details, along with I need to rush into the basement and get some things put away. Just an idea on some of the things that have come in or that I've acquired. There was some there's a rock in the backyard where I break eggs, chicken or duck eggs, to give to Victor when we go out and do our morning work. And some Dermestes talpinus actually laid eggs on the rock because there's a little bit of residue of egg that doesn't get licked up. And so there's a little colony of them propagating under the rock now, eating the dried up eggy bits. And I was like, I like Dermestes talpinus. And so I collected some larvae, and as the larvae outside get larger, I'm going to collect some more and try and get a little captive group going just because I like Dermestids. So Alan asked, do I have a light trap? I do actually have a light trap, but I'm going to, after your fun experience with Kai's lights and whatnot on this Florida trip, I'm going to look into some of the ones that I had used on previous Arizona trips and perhaps talk to Kim about some of the portable units that he has to set up for sake of convenience and whatnot. And of course, Will and I both have our fixtures as well, but I think my fixture is kind of screwed for some reason. So, yeah. So, anyways, the Dermestes from outside. I put a rain garden in at my cousin's house yesterday, and the actual rain garden that sunk in the ground because their soil's so moist and all the water was coming in off of their roof. It filled up with organic matter, and then I had put some grass clippings in there initially just to sort of add some more absorbent stuff and act as a mulch. And there was some standing water in there, and thankfully there weren't any mosquito larvae, but there were a bunch of rat tail maggots, and I thought, yeah, I might want to culture those. So I grabbed a couple of those. So I had to put those away. What else have I been dumb about? A lot of things. I went out to a friend's farm on Sunday, 2 friends' farms actually, but the one of them had a dead goat, so I went rooting around the dead goat carcass and found some. One of them was near the barn, so there were some Tenebria obscurus, and there were some Necrobia violacea, which is another species of Necrobia. I talked about the red-legged hand beetles that Will and I found at Menards. I still have them. I still have those going, but violacea is another species. So now I have violacea that I need to set up. So all kinds of little things here and there, and it all adds up, and it drives me crazy. So that's going to be the focus for tomorrow, in addition to maybe doing isopod husbandry. But basically, I should get back to that. So with that being said, thanks everybody for a absolutely amazing back after a long hiatus live stream. I really miss doing these, and I look forward to next week's, and I also look forward to eventually a big post-trip live stream. And I am going to look into if we get some rain. Things outside, most of my plants are looking good because I pick for dry soils, and there's been some soil building since I moved in over the last couple of years, so it's more absorbent and whatnot. Um, but I would like it to be, there's some stuff that's a little wilty, and I don't water stuff unless it desperately needs it, and definitely not in the front yard where there's big stretches designed to be prairie. It's survival of the fittest out there. Um, but if we get a good rain, I'm going to look into streaming from my phone, and we may do a live stream outside in the next couple of weeks. If I can stream from my phone and I can show off the front yard and some of the projects in the backyard and whatnot. And yeah, so we'll see. So thanks everyone for attending. I'll see everybody next week, maybe with another suite of cool bugs and whatnot. And until then, may your cultures ever be bountiful.